Hi everybody, how are you doing? I hope you're doing good. So I want to talk a little bit about your responses to the world that are outside you, regardless of what's going on. So let's take example work. How can you make something that may be unpleasant, whether it's the people, the situation, or what you're doing, into a pleasant one? Because what we're engaging in, what we're doing, is not always going to be pleasant. We can't change the outside world. We can only change what is within us and how we see it, perceive it, and respond to it. So if you're cleaning, so I'm going to give you an example. I clean condos, which is probably not my most favorite thing to do, but I do find it to be, takes me out of a space so I can it's almost meditative for me. So I found that within cleaning. And so it can become a good thing. It gives me time to think, gives me time to be on my own. And it also helps me because I put my intent in it that as I'm cleaning, I am cleaning away all things that are not needed for me anymore, that no longer serve me. So as I'm cleaning, I'm just putting that intent in it, and as I'm doing that, the energy is going towards it. So how you interact with the world and what you do and try to manifest, or what your intention is important. If you dredge going into work every day, that's how it's going to be. If you dredge going to see people, that's how it's going to be. If you dredge talking to somebody or interacting with somebody, that's what the experience is going to be. So what is your intent, and how is it going to be? How do you want it to be? How do you want it to resolve? You don't want to maybe emphasize on what an interaction is going to be like before it even happens, because you never know, but you could create that situation. So always be open-minded when you're going into a situation, whether it's work, talking to people, interacting with people, whatever the situation is or the experience is. So here's an example too. If you're going to interact with somebody and you know they're not going to get a positive response, don't, or you shouldn't, I don't want to say don't, but you shouldn't preconceive what that's going to be in the outcome, because you're already creating that situation to become your experience. So you don't want to, they're going to yell at me or blah, blah, blah. You don't want to create this whole experience that you don't want, because you want it to be a good experience. You want it to work itself out. You want it to be what is in the highest good for everybody. So go in open-minded, go in with no pre-expectations, and mostly don't sabotage yourself or create something that you have to do because you're wanting a situation to be a certain situation and you're fearful of what their reaction is going to be. So if you're going to make up a lie, or you're going to do something else that's going to sabotage you or limit you, or you're not honoring yourself in that situation. So it's a good idea not to do it that way either. And it's because we don't have control over the other person's response to a situation when you bring it to them. But that's on them, it's not you. As long as you're true to yourself, true to what you have to say, how you feel about a situation, that's what matters. Not how the other person acts, responds, or perceives anything. That's on them. And even though it may not really turn out the way it was supposed to turn out, no matter how positive you go into the situation or the experience, it may not at this one point, this experience, be a good one, but going forward you've created a new space for yourself. You've created the ability to be open-minded the next time you go into an experience, and it'll shift and change. Then the next time it will shift and change again. And as you keep making those choices to do what's in your highest best and honoring yourself, that's going to change and shift. Because it's a process of changing patterns, perceptions. It's not always going to be, sometimes it will be an automatic shift. Sometimes it will be a good outcome and response. Sometimes you might catch the right person at the right time, or the experience where they may be able to be open enough to see what you're bringing to them, and other times they won't. But again, you don't have control over the other person or the experience or what's going on. What's important is you and how you respond and react and perceive what's going on. So going into everything with an open mind, good intention, positive, and not dreading. Because when we dread, then that's the vibration that we bring in. So always remember, everything's energy, everything's vibration. So kind of look at those things. When you have to go to somebody, even if you wanted like a raise or something, and you know that you're worth it, and you do a good work, and you value, just because somebody else doesn't see it doesn't mean it's not true. Maybe they have other reasons, maybe they're not able to see that for whatever reason it is, but then again, it may be a sign for you to shift out of your job. What's important is not to respond to it in a negative way. So you can look at it from all different kind of angles, all different situations, all different experiences that you're engaging in. What you put in it is what you're going to get out of it. If you put negativity into it, it's going to be a negative experience. If you put positive in it, it's going to be a positive experience at some point down the line. Because when the cycles are going, like if you've been doing a certain thing for a certain amount of time and you're going into every situation negatively, or my experience with that person has been so negative, you have the ability to change that. It doesn't have to always continue and remain to be a negative experience. You can change that by your thoughts about it, your intention, your responses to it. So being in your heart space, being positive. Because at some point that's going to change and shift. So what you put into it is what's going to be your response. And some people may know that as like karma, or whatever you do, whatever you choose. So take a look at your situations. Be mindful about how you're interacting in the world, how you're responding to situations. Are you being present? Are you reacting? How are you reacting? What are your thoughts? What are your judgments? What's your perceptions to the outcomes or whatever's going on? And if it's not the outcome that you want about a situation, be okay. And that can be a hard thing to do, but it's important that that happens. Because if you create a negative situation, you're just creating a new cycle of that. So whatever you do, you're creating a new cycle. So when cycles end, going back to that, when cycles end, they take a little bit to shift out. Sometimes it's immediate. So it depends on it, how many times it's happened, how many times in the past it's recreated, how many layers there are. So there's a whole lot that's involved in it. So definitely take a look at all those situations, see where you can make changes, and put the love, happiness, and joy into whatever it is that you're doing, not what other people are doing, because you can't change them. Happy journeys.